Like a grand entrance.
I wonder if he's like Larry, who charges more if he wears a tie than.
And what color with that?
Okay, we're on.
All right. All right, it's 4 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. We have invocation and pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Marty McKee. Marty, I'll turn it over to you.
Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the weather you provide for us, Father, that when it's sunny, when it's raining, you know exactly what we need. Father, we just pray that you'll just give us insight into the recommendations that you'd have us to proceed with, Father, concerning our constituents. And Father, again, we just thank you for this opportunity to be used by you. And Father, we just pray again that you'll continue to guide, direct us in the course of your will. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marty. All right, we are now on item number C, special action items. Consider retention of general counsel through Pope Flynn LLC, specifically Lawrence. Is that Emil Flynn? We'll make fun of him when he comes in. There he is. Come on, baby, right here. I was just struggling with your middle name. How do you pronounce that?
Emil.
Emil. All right.
Yeah.
The third, as recommended by the executive committee. Just real quick, the executive committee met about a week ago, Chris.
Yes, sir.
In light of the retirement of Larry Brandt, and the executive committee recommends that we hire Lawrence and the Pope Flynn Group to fill that place that Larry was handling for us. So, I guess, am I actually asking the board to vote on this, Chris?
I think so, because it is general counsel for.
So I'm a little bit ahead of the agenda where I would have given an executive committee meeting report, but that is all we discussed at the executive committee meeting, and that is a recommendation from the executive committee. So I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any further discussion or any discussion, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Mark, we appreciate you stepping up and sweating.
Absolutely. So big shoes to fill. Yeah, if you want to keep this.
And we're obviously getting the discount because he's not wearing the tie.
Yeah, Larry gave us a discount if you didn't wear a tie.
Well, I mean, that's fair enough. I wore a jacket.
Checks in the mail, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, item 2C, accept nominations and elect vice chair for the OJRSA Board of Commissioners for the remainder of the current term. And what is that term? It ends?
It ends December 31st of this year.
Okay. I'll entertain nominations.
You don't have a, I'd like to nominate Mr. Wilbur.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other candidates for the field?
Lawrence, I'm getting the bad end of this deal. You got the better end.
You only got 6 months, don't cry.
All right, we have Scott Morter nominated as vice chair. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right.
You don't count.
I may have 6 months now.
Maybe you won't go to Waha.
I'm just kidding. I guess I don't vote if I'm the nominee, right? I'll be happy to do it.
Thank you. We'll go to item number D, public session. Receive comments related to topics that may or may not be on this agenda. Session is limited to a maximum of 30 minutes with no more than 5 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? On this side of the room? This side? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number E, approval of minutes. You have in front of you the Board of Commissioners meeting of June the 2nd, 2025. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we pass these minutes for June 2nd, 2025, commissioner meeting.
Have a motion? Have a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We did not have minutes from the July 7th meeting because we didn't have a meeting. We also have Board of Commissioners meeting on July 15th, special call meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion?
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number F, there were no Operation and Planning Committee meeting. There was not a Finance and Administration Committee meeting, both due to either lack of agenda items or request of the committee. Operations and Planning Committee meeting on July 16th. Mr. McLean.
Committee met on July 16th. It's kind of a short meeting. Had an update on current project, one of which we kind of discussed was completion of Seward South Phase 2 project that we've done a couple of months. I think this is just still waiting on a couple of things from the engineering side to complete that project, some of the GI. That's information, I believe. Also talked a little bit about the Speed Creek pump station, the one issues there, and talked a little bit about the force main upgrade that's currently going on at Seneca Creek. That seems to be going well. Environmental regulatory compliance. Mr. Lindsay spoke to us about a toxicity violation with one of the local users. They changed, I think, the way they do one of their process, or initially changed how they do some of their process, and they created some issues. I think all that's been cleared up now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lindsay. I think that's cleared up and everything's good on that one. We also talked a little bit about the NPDES permit. Chris is hoping to get that wound up and looking forward to hopefully getting to use paracetamol disinfection. The cows are excited about that. Aren't you guys? Chris also introduced one of his new employees. I don't believe he's in here today, but Mr. Jake Wilson, who he's excited about. I believe he worked with Mr. Brandt for a while, and once he's trained, he'll be doing a lot of the plan reviews and on-site inspections, property management, and some of the GIS work. I know Chris has already got him involved in some easement work, so he's got him busy. Pretty busy and excited to have him. I believe that, like I say, was a short meeting. I believe that was the highlights, and it looks like Lynn's got everything captured pretty good in the minutes.
As she always does.
And she always does. That's correct. Nobody has any questions on the motion to approve?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to add that Jake would seem like he's going to be a really good guy. He's very personable, answered all our questions. He was just a very nice guy. Worked for
He put up
Larry
with
for
Larry.
10 years, so that's something like that.
Might be something wrong with it.
All right, we'll move on to Executive Committee meeting of July 29th, 2025. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the Executive Committee met. We had one discussion item. About half that discussion was in executive session and was what to do to replace Mr. Brandt. The best we could do is come up with Lawrence Emil Flynn III. So the recommendation was to this body for that. We've now appointed Lawrence to that group. You got a good team? We did good work.
We did. Thank you.
I did see where you won Lawyer of the Year for 22 and 24.
But I like to go on the even years.
I was gonna say, what happened to 23?
I like to skip. That was a little.
Okay.
Term limits.
Yeah, that's right. You wanna
Well,
leave
that was by utilities law, not public finance law.
think they're all kind of made up.
Glad to have you on board. All the same, I will make a motion that we accept those meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number G.
Did we
acceptance.
skip over FNA on that one? The
Yes.
July 22nd one?
Well, because the city's not here.
Oh, yeah, I did skip over that.
Yeah.
Anybody else that was on that committee want to make a report? Chris, why don't we have you give us a brief report on that? Thank you, Lynn, for catching that.
All right, the nuts and bolts of that meeting is the typical go through and discuss the projects that we have for the current year, as well as any of the larger capital projects or projects that are funded with restricted accounts. And then we went through and presented a revised copy of the impact fee policy. So for those of you who may not have been around for a while, we used to charge impact fees based on the DHEC, what do they call it, the hydraulic loading allocated capacity or flow. Then I think around 2021, we changed to it being based on the water meter size. And then we went back for this, starting July 1st of this year, went back to the DHEC, or now DES, formula for calculating those flows. The impact fees are tied to that again, which required the revision to the policy. So I provided Mr. Flynn with a general set of information, and he devised the policy that was presented to the F&A committee, and it was approved from there to present to the board today. So you'll find that later on the agenda. And the only other item that I had mentioned in there was the development policy. So now that we have changed the sewer use regulation and the impact fees, that's going to trigger some small changes or revisions to the development policy. So we're working on those, and I'm hoping to have those sometime September, October to begin bringing to committee for consideration.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Got a motion, we have a second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Lynn, thank you for catching me on that one. Moving on to item number G, acceptance of sewer feasibility implementation ad hoc committee meeting reports. Lynn Stevens.
Okay, we have the two reports. The first one was from May, and they're pretty, I wrote them out pretty good, so I'm just gonna kind of summarize what we had in there. For the committee reviewed the draft recommendations for reconstitution. After talking about adding a member to the board, it suggests adding clarification and recommendations for what a member was, and then suggested to omit the word member altogether. After talking about rate structures, Mr. Jones suggested it be called unified equitable rate structure, and said how that played out goes beyond the work of that committee. There was discussion about the steps to determine the valuation of collection system assets. There was some discussion about recommending a timeline for equalization. Ms. Brock suggested 6 months. Mr. Flynn stated there should be a hard deadline of no later than a year to determine how to do the valuation and asset review. There was discussion about district boundary options. Mr. Flynn stated the best approach is to limit the service area to those people who receive retail services from the organization. Mr. Eliezer asked if it could be defined as where they are receiving service or within a certain radius of existing infrastructure. And Mr. Flynn said that would be the best result. And there was some discussion about a transitional committee to help the cities move forward and release control of their collection systems. This committee would be a new ad hoc committee that was through the existing authority.
Right, and that was from the May meeting?
The main, yeah.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes. A motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The 16th.
So with this one here, this is your first exhibit that I included in the packet, and it's the unanimous consent resolution that Mr. Flynn recommend that we, as that committee, move forward to adopt and approve those committee meeting minutes, since there was not going to be another meeting following that time. So in your package, you'll find the signature of every committee member agreeing that those minutes were submitted as a true reflection of what was discussed at the meeting.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so the draft recommendation that the committee reviewed at this meeting was, included edits from the May meeting. The recommendations were 5 of them, all systems. Number 1, all systems to be combined into one system. Number 2, there be a 5-person board. Number 3, the governance documents be reconstituted and will supersede all existing documents. Number 4, the current OJRSA board will dissolve this ad hoc committee and then establish an implementation committee ad hoc committee. And number 5, a communications plan would be developed for the reorganization, which would be used by all entities involved and allow input for residents and customers. The kickoff day would be the day after the board adopts or approves this. The ad hoc committee should have only 2 representatives from the current board, and it was recommended to have the chair and vice chair as they are elected by the whole board. An implementation timeline was included in the recommendation. There was some discussion about when the deadlines were in respect to elections. Some were before the elections, some were after. There was also some discussion about timeframes being too short, but it was discussed that the implementation committee could extend these timelines if needed. It was suggested to keep Wildan to do the rate consulting, as they know our existing rate structure and process. There was some discussion about who is going to pay for the evaluations. Ms. Metland stated that it's in the intention to ask the IRA for some funding, which, I said RIA, for some funding, which she would do after the recommendations are approved. There was some discussion about having the recommendations be presented to the board in Oconee County at the same time, which was held on July 15th at Tri-County Tech. It was discussed that the final minutes would be approved via individual emails and with a resolution that Chris just talked about. And then the committee was presented with resolution 2025-03, given to them by the OJRSA board for recognition to the members for their hard work. Some of the members also received a gift card.
All right, thank you.
Tongue-tied.
You did great. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number H, Secretary Treasurer Report. Lynn Stevens.
Okay, y'all have your report in your folder along with the graph on the back. We have a combined cash and investments for all accounts of $13,370,134. I have previously sent you an email on July 16th showing all the reconciliations from the outside accountant for May and June. We've been reconciled through June. And we have 4 CDs that are going to mature this month that will all be reinvested.
All right, any questions for Lynn? All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept. Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number I, presentation and discussion items. First item, discuss establishment of an ad hoc agency reconstitution committee to oversee and guide the initial implementation steps as stated in recommendation number 4 of the OJRSA reorganization recommendations as accepted by the Board of Commissioners on July 15th, 2025, Exhibit C. What I'd like to start off with is, and this may be a question for you, Lawrence. Part of the recommendations are that we officially dissolve the Ad Hoc Sewer Feasibility Implementation Committee,
Mhm.
primarily because it's very long to say. Do we need to take an action by the board to officially dissolve that, or?
I think it probably makes sense to do so, just so you can relieve the folks that had given you this report, which was their original task, so that there's just no confusion as to.
Now, I included that language in my motion on the July.
I guess you did make that
15th
motion. Did we
To
formally
dissolve
dissolve
So,
them?
release them of their duties.
You
That was
did.
part of the motion.
You did, yeah,
So,
you said that part of this motion.
but we can make it more official at the board meeting here if we need to, but I didn't know if.
No, if you did it there, I mean, that was a board meeting, I didn't recall.
Lynn, do you have the minutes from that meeting that there's a site?
I'll look it up while you guys
Yeah.
continue to discuss. Yeah, but I recall it was in there as well.
He did make that.
Was that the meeting at the school?
Yes.
Is that the one we just approved?
Yes.
I'll read, the last portion of it says, and to release the ad hoc committee of its duties with this motion, so forth.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott, for doing that.
Sure.
Okay, so we have, or you all have in front of you the report. We received it officially from the ad hoc committee on the 15th. Chip Bentley did a great job presenting that to us. Within Exhibit A is an implementation timeline. That timeline has an, I guess for not knowing how better to say it, it established a number of days within the acceptance of their report to begin doing specific tasks. So the first two things that come about are within 45 days. The first item is the current board will dissolve the current ad hoc committee, which has been done, and establish, it says an implementation committee, but Chris has now given us a new phrase called ad hoc agency reconstitution committee. You only get a half gold star for.
Well, this is
Yeah.
our term. It's way better than it was originally.
Still give you a half gold star.
We could just
for
call it the Reconstitution Committee.
that. That works. And then the other is within 45 days, the legislative revisions of the act will be finalized and provided to the delegation. Let's break that down, and even though I'm kind of leading the discussion here, you guys chime in whenever you would like. My suggestion is that we go ahead and at least today discuss, if not formally commit to the Reconstitution Committee based off the guidelines of the report. And I am looking at page 27 of 46 of this agenda packet. It is page 6 of the report. It is item number 4 of the recommendations. If you can't find it after all 3 of those, yeah. If we look at what this is the board will dissolve the current ad hoc committee meeting, which we've done, and then establish a working group, which we're talking about the Reconstitution Committee. And it states no more than 2 representatives of the current board, 1 representative of OJRSA staff, 1 representative of Oconee County, 1 representative of the Appalachian Council of Governments, no more than 2 additional facilitators. Non-voting may also be recommended. Independent legal counsel may also remain actively involved in all consolidation efforts to ensure compliance with legal matters. I'd like to start at the bottom and work our way up. Any objection to continuing to use Lawrence for the legal counsel? All right, that's easy. Jumping up to the ACOG, I believe Chip said in the meeting he was willing to serve again. And Chris, time got away from me today. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. Have you talked to Chip about continuing to serve?
I have not, but I feel pretty sure he would. I'll reach out to him, and
Okay.
if you wish to move forward with anything today and appoint him, I can let him know, and then he can let us know if he would prefer not to.
Is everyone okay if we put Chip in as a placeholder for now and waiting on confirmation from him? No more than 2 additional facilitators, going back down 1. I spoke with Catherine Amadon at the meeting. She was willing to continue to serve in a facilitator capacity. I think Angie Metlin is willing to do the same. Are you all okay continuing to use those 2 ladies since they've been working through this? See a number of heads shaking, nobody.
The only other person I would maybe put out there, and I don't know how you bring him back on, but Joel Jones, who was the chair of that committee, has since retired from REWA and is now doing this work on a consulting basis. It may not be a terrible idea to keep him involved, just knowing his expertise in sewer-related matters.
What are the thoughts of the board to include Joel Jones in this?
I think you did a fine job with the committee. I mean, I think we have a lot to offer.
Yeah, it don't make sense to keep the ones they have because they're knowledgeable with everything that's going on.
Well, we'll just say no more than 3. One representative, I'm still working my way back up to the top, one representative of Oconee County. I texted Amanda today. She said she had emailed with you. She is willing to, Amanda Brock is willing to
And I have a quote from her. Quote, "I'll be honored to serve as the county's representative." So,
She sent me that same quote. All right. Any objection to Ms. Brock continuing to serve? Again, she was on that original. One representative of OJRSA staff. Chris, I'm looking at you. I'm guessing it's you. Lynn doesn't want to do it. Kyle's trying to hide over here. So, are you willing to continue to serve?
yes, sir.
It may only be your employment that's at stake. All right, and then no more than 2 representatives of the current board. You did a good job serving before, Mr. Paris. Who else was on that group? Scott McLean on that group too. Now there was at least in one iteration of this that suggested that the chair and the vice chair serve, but that did not survive the final recommendation. Is that
The
correct?
final recommendation did.
It is.
have
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Good try, Evan.
So, in fact, so after you and I met Monday of last week, I had a conversation with Lawrence about this because there was that possibility, not even a possibility, the reality that there could be one city that did not have a commissioner that was going to be represented on it. So I'll let Mr. Flynn speak to it. And again, these are recommendations, just like you mentioned, that 2 could become 3.
So yeah, now that Mr. Mulder has been duly appointed as the vice chair, you've got Westminster and Seneca both represented. The Walhalla folks are now, not to say they're left out, but as part of the consolidation, you have the report. I think the original thought, and I was not a part of some of the conversations on this recommendation, but the original thought was they were trying to create an implementation committee that didn't have an even number so that if there was a concern, you wouldn't have a tie vote. And then separately, you're obviously trying to keep the board to a number less than a quorum. Obviously, if you put 3 members of the board on there, you don't have any quorum issues. You do have 6, you've created a 6-member implementation authorization. My general thought on that is if you can't reach a level of unanimity on making decisions for the implementation committee, we're going to have a bigger issue anyways. And I think the idea of leaving a member of this organization off when you have a potential member of the county who has been recommended as being a 4th member of the organization going forward, and then potentially leaving Walhalla out of the discussion seems just like bad practice to me. At the end of the day, I don't have a vote in this, but if you're going to go through the process and we're going to make recommendations to follow this report, the thought of potentially having a tie vote on any decision seemed like a far cry from being able to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table.
So, quick question, I'm trying to understand, is Walhalla not wanting to be part of that, or?
Well, no, if you were to go just by the the
About
strict
the
recommendations, it says two, no more,
Oh, okay, I see you going.
no more than two from this
I
board.
think the implementation committee was more worried about making sure that you had an odd number so that you could always have a majority. And while there's some merit to that, I think what this organization is and knowing kind of how this is going to really represent the next step of the organization, it seems like a representative from every affected entity probably needs to be a part of the reconstitution
Oh,
process.
and that's what your comment came in, look, if they can't all get along now, there's,
Correct.
we got big, okay, I understand, thank you.
So I went ahead and reached out to Celia just to get her thoughts on the matter, knowing she wasn't going to be here today. And she said that she would support having, obviously with Walhalla now being the odd city out, that she would support and appreciate the ability to represent, that she would be happy to serve on that committee if the board elected to go in that position. The one question that I do have about the quorum is these committee meetings will be public meetings. It'll be a quorum, and not only will it be a quorum, it'll be a full membership of our executive committee that will be on there. So there would be, I can't imagine there being any action items or anything associated with the limited powers that committee does have with the board, but is there anything that we could do when I put the agenda together that this committee would do to maybe ensure that there was nothing that would happen in that regard?
I mean, maybe the way to then, because it just happened to work out this way, so maybe this is not the right recommendation, but if you just make the recommendation that your executive committee sits as the recommending body for purposes of the Reconstitution Committee, you have those three members that automatically just accede to it, and then you would just run notices of the executive committee meetings just like you would in any other scenario. The problem with that is if you run into a situation where your executive committee doesn't have an individual member of each city, then you get back to the same place.
Well, I'm speaking for the board here, but as the executive director, I try to make sure, and I think we always have to point out that, to try to have one member of each city on the executive committee, and it's been that way at least since I've been here. It's always worked out.
I see no more essential function of an executive body than to make a decision about how the organization gets reconstituted.
Any objection from this group in using the executive committee, which would be Scott, Mulder, Celia, and myself for those positions? All right. So if I go back and look at my scribbles here, we would have 3 members from the current board, which would be Scott Mulder, Celia Myers, and Kevin Bronson. Chris Eliezer from the OJRSA staff, Amanda Brock from Oconee County Government, Chip Bentley, or whomever else he may designate from the Appalachian Council of Governments, Catherine Amadon from Bolton and Mink, Angie Metlin from, Chris, I'm drawing a blank, WK Dixon, and then Joel Jones, should he agree
Is
to
there a
serve.
group like Solera?
Ardora,
Yeah.
Whose is that?
WK Dixon.
They got bought out.
Yeah.
Oh.
With a new name even,
Yes.
Adara.
Adara. There it is.
We'll just say we'll have Angie come back. And then Lawrence Flynn as independent counsel. So I'd offer that to you as a slate from this group to appoint as the ad hoc Reconstitution Committee.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Or any discussion, I should say. We'll make sure y'all get invited.
Thank you.
All right, since there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I guess the next thing we need to do, Chris, is to set a meeting time. What was the rhythm of the previous ad hoc committee?
I believe it was was it the first Thursday or the second
Second
Thursday
Thursday.
at 9 a.m.?
Yeah.
I believe that was when it was.
That seems to be a clear day of my week each month. Clear day of the month, every month. Second Thursday.
That's why I had to get my phone.
What time's good? 9 a.m.?
Yeah, that'll work well with me.
That works.
As long as it works for everybody else. Some of you got further to drive than the rest of us.
And I doubt into most of them anyways, so.
Okay.
Okay.
A great way to start the morning.
Shall we start this month? So we'll start on August 14th. Assuming the folks who are not here can make that date. And if they can't, then we'll endeavor to start in September.
I've got an 11 o'clock that day, so I don't imagine we'll be here for the first meeting more than 2 hours.
No.
So,
Morris, for the longest time, I thought you were in Columbia, so good that you're in Greenville.
No, I am in Columbia.
Oh, you are?
I am, yeah. But we have some attorneys in Spartanburg and in Greenville, so y'all may meet Kim Wonder at some point. Potentially see you roads. It's got
I was driving up the Interstate 26 and all that traffic, I'll pray for you.
I live it every day.
All right, so unless there is some scheduling challenge with those other folks, Chris will go ahead and plan on August 14th, 9 a.m. in the Lamar Bales conference room right here. All right, well, that took care of the first item, and within 45 days, we'll have till August 29th to get that done. If any of you on the board not appointed to that committee have any ideas that you'd like for the committee to entertain, please send those to Chris in an email and let him disseminate that to that committee. And that doesn't apply just to the first meeting that we have, but any that come thereafter.
I think that would also entail anything that you fundamentally or materially disagree with in the implementation committee's recommendations would be something that I think the board probably needs to know on the front end.
All right, we'll move on to item J, action items. Item number 1, approve resolution 2025-06, revision to the OJRSA impact fee policy, change to policy necessary to comply with the change in the way the agency assesses impact fees as noted in the approved fiscal year 2026 schedule of fees. Mr. Elliott.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated earlier, the document that you have, and it's in tab number 7, is the revised draft version for consideration of the impact fee policy. And again, it takes us to the way we used to calculate those fees, which for the backbone of it is based around the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services regulation for calculating their design of systems. We have had a few modifications to that in-house, and these went back to previous board policies for calculating. Those have been incorporated in here. So, for example, like a grocery store, I think the new policy or regulation that went into effect for the state back in 2015 eliminated the flow based on the square footage of the store and went to a per customer count or some type of a count that you don't have any idea of how many customers are going to generate. So the sewer authority, years ago before I even came on board again, they elected to retain what they currently were doing prior to that time, which was 0.2 gallons per square foot of floor space. So you'll see as you look through these, that there's a few of those in there, but for the most part, it uses the standard state policies. I'm trying to think, I really think those are really the biggest changes. Everything else was exactly the way that it was prior, that if someone did apply, they were required to procure at least one residential equivalent unit or equivalent residential unit. You'll see it either way across the state, and we will provide those calculations to them. I am working on developing a calculation sheet that can be submitted and certified by the developer, engineer, contractor, which was a suggestion from the committee to take that burden off of us doing it in-house. So that'll be a tremendous help as well. But again, the way we're doing these calculations went into effect July 1st. Now it's formalizing it and adopting it with this policy. And I know in speaking with Mr. Flynn, who revised our previous one and brought this one up to what you see now, he did include in here is Appendix 1, the justification memorandum from Weston and Sampson. Because I believe that he stated before that these fees cannot be arbitrary in nature, and they have to be tied to a tangible, what would be the proper word?
Cost, so they're cost justified.
So that's, again, that's what is presented before you for consideration.
All right, any questions for Chris or comments?
Real quick, when I was looking through this, and I understand everything that's on it, but then it goes back to a marina, individual slips. Why is there an impact fee on boat slip?
Well, again, this is all based on the state standard. I don't know if they may have a pump out station or a,
Okay, I see, okay.
Restrooms that may be associated with it. I don't really know.
That's what
It
I
was
was saying, I
just a-
can't remember a slip ever having a restroom, but I'm not a big boat guy, so.
You should get you a big boat and then you'll.
Yeah, we'll find out, yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Mr. Chair, I got one question. So when we initially were contemplating this change back, you had some concerns, but then when we came up with the method of the developer determining the calculations, you were fine. Before we approve this one more time, we'll make sure you're good with, because initially you had some concerns, but you're good with this approach now.
The big concern I had, again, was taking the time to do the calculation. So once that suggestion came up, and we're actually, Ms. Stevens and I have been having conversations with somebody like DocuSign, where they can go and possibly do this online, certify it, submit it to us, and we'll use it that way. So, which I think we're kind of excited about that whole direction anyway. So no, I have no issues at all with it.
The only thing I would add is there's a state law on the acceptance of electronic signatures, and you have to pass it by policy as to whether you will formally adopt electronic signature policy.
Well, all this really is here is just them providing the numbers and stating that what they're providing to us is accurate. Now, accountability or anything like that, the plans they may submit to us may change as they go. So, we take everything, the drawings we receive, all of this information with a grain of salt. It just takes a tremendous time burden off of myself, and then, now it'll be Jake Wilson and others that'll help. So now we don't have to do the calculations, we just have to do some spot checking and verification from time to time to make sure they're accurate.
Any additional questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, 3 seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, approve Cove Utility Construction Change Order Request number 1 in the amount of $14,225.64 for work necessary to complete OJRSA project number 2025-05 General Water Reclamation Facility Installation Projects. Kyle Lindsay.
So the Cove Utility has completed that project and changing out multiple pumps and equipment for the facility. The change order to come through was mostly on, all of it on pipe and fittings. And the reason for the change order was the insulation that was covering the pipes and some of the fitting was a different size than originally thought. So they had to get the right size pipe and fitting. So that's the reason for the change order. I do approve it, and we do have the funds in the plant GL account to cover it.
Any questions for Kyle? I'll entertain a motion. A motion? Second. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Kyle, thank you.
I like how the two operation people were the ones who motioned second. Something tells me they've been through something like that before.
They know about it. Moving on to item K, Executive Director's Discussion and Compliance Matters. Chris Elliott.
Well, I'm gonna keep Mr. Lindsay here and have him give a brief update again to the full board, because I know the O&P committee heard it, but about the toxicity violation that we had, as well as a little bit on the NPDES permit renewal and where we are with that. And then just a discussion, because I think some of you guys may be aware of some of the odor complaints that we've received over the last, 2-3 weeks. Really, I guess you could say the last 2 or 3 months, but we received some, was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. So I will keep this brief because Mr. McLean has already discussed the toxicity, which we had a failure, acute toxicity in February, and the labs saw that it was a high conductivity, which was traced back to local industry. The pre-treatment, along with Golden Associates, were working already on their permit, so it went through DES. We got stricter limits on them, along with more frequent sampling, which seems to be taking that issue out of the equation now. So it looks like we're good now with that toxicity. As far as the NPDES, there were multiple things in a permit that DES was trying to put in our new permit, which we had, I call it a rebuttal letter, with all the things that we're trying to get out of on the new permit. It added the parasitic acid. The big one on there they were trying to add was an aluminum limit for here at the plant, which is, again, it goes back to industries, and that's what we're trying to let them. It's not anything that we produce. It's kind of out of our hands, and it will cost millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, to put a process here that can take out aluminum. So again, that's in our document, in our report that we submitted back to DES. So we're just now in the waiting game to see when they will be putting their next comments back out to us for what we submitted. As far as the odor complaints, we had multiple odor complaints back in May from a subdivision that is really close here to the plant. Everything, we had a couple of changes of the process because we was accepting some sewer from another packaged plant during that time frame, which was the majority of the odor that we think was causing it. We had 0 odor complaints in June. We had 4 odor complaints the last 2 weeks, and it's just, again, it's normal. And I spoke with every one of them, just normal process. During these equipment changeouts, we had couple of pumps that process our sludge was down for 2 weeks. So we've been pushing and moving sludge throughout the plant. Anytime you do that, it creates odors. So again, the past week, we've been 0 odors here at the plant. Everybody I talk with understands at the subdivision. So everybody, I think right now is good where we're at.
Thank you, Kyle.
And we know what we do for a living. It doesn't smell good anyways, but we don't like smelling it any more than anybody else does either. So we try to do what we can to keep the odors down, if not completely eliminated. So, again, it seems to have rectified itself, but I knew that there were, some in the room may have heard from some of the neighbors and possibly posts on Facebook and things like that about it.
So, a couple of questions, 3 questions for Kyle, if it's okay. Number one, do we have a lot of industry around here that have some sort of aluminum waste product in their process?
I don't know if Allison ever got back with us about who was a potential contributor.
We're currently working on getting that list together.
Okay,
so
and
that's
they
part
would
of
be responsible at the plant level to take care of their issue.
Correct. That's why there's a pre-treatment program. So what our process here, we're a biological treatment plant. They would be a physical chemical facility. And when I mentioned it again a minute ago, to convert us to being a facility that would convert us to removing metals and the like, would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars range, because if we receive, we're rated for 7.8 million gallons a day here, we would have to build a facility that's capable of removing metals from 7.8 million gallons coming through the plant. That's correct, isn't it, Kyle? So that's the whole reason a pretreatment program exists, to put that on the, the point source users to remove it, to bring what they discharge down to biological, domestic wastewater levels.
Then the second question, at one of our O&P meetings, we had 4 representatives from a subdivision here that, is that the same subdivision? Okay, now there was some recommendations made about the communication process. Did that work out a lot better this time?
It was still individuals
Okay,
that was contacted.
and you got back, so
I did. I
didn't
got
we
back.
make a recommendation that they make it one person from that
We
subdivision?
did, that was the recommendation, but
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions for Kyle or Chris?
That's all we have for the environmental portion of it. Miscellaneous, so this was something that I probably would have added as a more, in a more flamboyant fashion on the agenda to make it stand out a lot more, because this right now really closes out the Oconee County involvement with Sewer South Phase 2. So Friday afternoon, we received a letter from an independent accountant, and this letter is in the front pocket of your binder. And I'll just summarize the important part here, that we will be refunding or returning back to Oconee County $1,783,375.70.
Going to the beach, baby.
So what that amount is for was for the, I don't want to say overage, but it was paid to us to make us whole whenever we had to pay the contractor. But since our grants were reimbursement grants, we got those back, got that funds returned from either the state or federal government as appropriate on the back end. So we wanted to make sure that we returned every penny due back to the county, and Lynn did a great job, and I think she even stated that her accounting was verified by the independent accountant to the penny. So we do have confirmation, and this letter has already been submitted to Ms. Brock, and was a check cut today?
Yeah.
So there should be a check in there that's going to be signed, and it'll be sent to the county to return that money. The remainder of the money that was in the fund that this paid for, which was the retail operation and maintenance fund, which is an unrestricted but separate account, all but $100,000 per what the board approved last July 1st, I believe is the date, is being transferred over now to the projects and contingency fund. So you will see next month in the Secretary Treasurer's report, you'll see a shift in that graph with where the funds are located, but that's what will happen. And I think that amount is going to be in the neighborhood of, where is it? I'll round it to $1.5 million transferred to project contingency. So those are the only 2 items that I had, Mr. Chair.
So,
Go ahead.
quick question, where on your report here, what fund will be impacted by this
It'll be
transfer?
leaving the RO&M, that
Okay,
amount,
okay,
and then it'll be going to the projects and contingency.
so that'll be reduced by $1 million, $1.5 million?
Yeah,
something like
okay.
that. Okay, thank you very much.
And that project contingency fund is a restricted fund, and it is used specifically for what the title of it is, projects and emergency contingency.
Well, that'll make the county happy.
That makes us happy as well, because we've been, this is something we've been trying to get resolved for many, many months. So we had to wait through tax season and everything else, and then to finally get this verification complete.
And as is noted here, but I'm gonna read it, right here on this report, it says, no exceptions were found as a result of these procedures, so, boom, just like that.
Any further comments, questions, discussions? All right, so we'll move on to item number L, Commissioners' discussion. Anybody got anything they want to talk about?
I got one.
All right.
Now that we've passed the resolution for the impact fees, solidifying everything, just a few minutes ago, there's going to be a request for an appeal to violate that resolution. Got a call from Landmark Properties, which is the development arm for the new Target development up off of 123. And they've got, obviously, they were approved 60,000 gallons.
Oh, yes,
Was their
approximately
permitted
60.
capacity approximately 60,000? Their DES approval to construct was all based on that, and that capacity has been allocated to that project, which we all know in that area, capacity is at its premium right now. So the developer called, and we were talking about a number of other things, but he brought this one up about the payment of the impact fees. He was under the impression that, based on the way he's done things elsewhere, that when the project or one of the properties is taken down, i.e. say Target, then that particular company would pay the impact fee portion of the 60,000 gallons. So basically he is concerned about paying, his development group is concerned about paying the impact fee on the full 60,000. He'd like to do it as the projects are taken down and approved within the development. I told him that's not the way that the policy is written. The policy is written that as soon as the capacity is permitted, that he would be required to pay the full impact fee on it. It's been our practice for quite some time. He asked if there's any way around it. I said, well, I talked to Chris, and he said there's an appeal process, of course, that they can go through. That's a procedural format. I've forwarded that. Chris forwarded it to me, and I forwarded it to him. So just making you aware that may be a request for an appeal or a variance or whatever you want to call it. I know we've done a couple of things. One was in Walhalla, similar to that, but the scale of that project was like
That was
two properties.
Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, it was a
right?
little different. And then I know we did the deal with Brent Little, which he was paying for the infrastructure instead of the tap fee. I don't know how the board's going to feel about it, but we would certainly present it. And he's got 10 days. I can't remember.
I give them 10 days. So this goes back for a number of months. What they sent us a request they needed for us to approve the building permit on the county side of things back in around mid-April. I don't have the exact date handy. And for whatever reason, I don't know why this project, they tied the utilities improvement, the public wastewater system that Seneca Light and Water will eventually own and operate. They tied that to the building permit. So I couldn't approve the building permit without approving the other side of it as well. So we were trying to work through things. And the email that they sent to us and the phone call that I had with them basically stated that Target, that they needed to have something done within a day or two as far as getting approval to go ahead and start moving, or else they would have to either delay the project because they had a crew that, I guess they move around the country and all they do is build targets from what I understood, and that this area here could go to the back of the list, or they may choose to walk away from it altogether. So not being the one that wanted to kill or possibly kill something that would happen in the area that so many people were excited about, I came up with several items that I emailed and discussed with them that I asked them, for them to reply to, state that they agreed with these and that it was that they would go ahead and move through the process as quickly as they could. Well, I had gone several months without hearing anything from them. So last week, I sent them an email stating that they had 10 days. Like I couldn't get them to return my phone calls, couldn't get them to return my emails. So I just sent them an email, figured that would get their attention if I give them 10 days to get the process permitted and get them moving. Because I don't know how, I have never even given them a letter, the engineer a letter to submit to the state for them to be able to get their permit to install their wastewater line. Because that's something that is only generated after they pay the impact fees and receive their permit from us. So I contacted Columbia, DES, and asked them how did they get by with this. And they stated then, the engineer said that they had received a letter saying that we had the ability to serve the 60,000 gallons a day, but it was not a commitment that we would do it. Well, the way the engineer on the phone with me at DES stated is any letter we get from you is considered to be a commitment. So I've learned a lesson right there. I'll never write another letter saying that we have service available to somebody until they procure the service. That's lesson one. Lesson two is, we got to figure this part out. Again, it shouldn't have gotten to where it did, but here we are with it. I don't want to damage or do away with the project by any means, because I know there are a lot of people that are excited about it. My wife being one of them. So, so that's what, Mr. Mulder and I, we've been trying to hash this through the other day. I contacted Mr. Gilbert to see if he would be able to help me out with getting in touch with them and getting them to communicate back with me. So here we are.
Yes, I mean, they've gotten their permits and everything. The letter was sent, whatever, and now they're under construction. We really don't want to send a letter to DES saying, okay, now they need to pull their permit, stop the project. Just trying to find a resolution for the payment of those, but we're not asking for anything today. I just want to make the board aware that it happened and that they probably will submit an appeal asking for us to consider payment of that as the properties are taken down. So,
And that appellate process is to the board.
Well, the true appeal process, I believe, if I remember right, I guess we do have it in front of us. Do you have this?
It was to the board.
It's to the executive director first.
So with that said, but then in there, something stated in there, Lawrence, about that, is it paid up front? And it is paid up front, whether it's through a direct payment or escrow or a bond, correct? So from what I read through when I sent that the other day, that they did need to pay and then make the appeal. Is that how you?
That's correct.
So the 60 million, this $60,000 or 60 million gallons is not going to change. They just want to pay in increments, sort of like the Habitat.
Well, the reason I think that the O&P committee approved that Habitat project the way they did was because it was a nonprofit and they were planning on building a house and then using the money for that to, to move that project forward.
Much different kind of project.
And this is, Jamie, we've had this discussion, discussions about this for a number of years of ways we can do this and where we could come up with agreements for places, I think it's specifically in the cases we've talked about was for industries. And I think that we had several areas where we agreed that we would move forward with it. And, we're speaking with Mr. Flynn about it as well. But I think that and this would be allowed someone to pay over time, but if we did do that, it would need to be something that would be binding, that, there was no loopholes tied into it, but also that either had an interest clause in there or included that they, if the fees changed, that they would pay, the next portions based on those changes in fees. So these are things that we have spoken about for a number of years, because we do know that some of these fees can be high. Now, the thing with this one is nobody has ever asked me what their fee even is. I'm the only one that knows about it, and I think I mentioned it to Scott McLean, my rough calculation of it, but as of right now, nobody's even asked what they even owe.
That project.
How much do they owe?
It is, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I figured if you were going to put it on
You
the
just dangling it out there, yeah.
The impact fee is 803,000. I'll round it to 804. 804,000. The plan review fees are about 19,000.
The amount of dirt they've moved there with me driving, it's got to be more than $800,000 by far. That is.
And I think that's part of his concern is the upfront payment of it, when it's going to be a while before the tenants are even identified and those areas are even built out. So I think that's what he's asking is, look, $800,000 is a lot of money up front. Can we pay it as the particular parcels, they get their permit to build those particular out parcels or others? Instead of paying the $800,000 and then, be 3 years before it's fully built out, or 4 years, or whatever it's gonna take them.
Well, that, Chris, with that, okay, they've got 10 days to answer. The next board meeting is September the 8th. Would action be taken before then?
I'm not opposed to me granting them any type of extension that we feel worthy. My point with the 10 days was to get their attention, because I was getting no response from anybody, whether it was through phone calls to Landmark or the engineer or emails to both of them. I was getting nothing back. So I felt like here I am. I'm, to be honest with you, I was frustrated because I've been over backwards when they needed something from me, and I've been patient, and now I can't get them to respond to my phone calls or emails at all.
Well,
Jamie, I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but do you support what Scott's recommending here?
I do like that idea of being able to phase it in like that. If the board supports it, I think that's a fair way to do it, but I also understand if you're wanting the allocation, you gotta pay for allocation if you want it. But I do think in this case, the other tenants aren't lined up for the shopping center. They're putting the infrastructure in. I do think it's a fair way, and I think economic development would appreciate that consideration of doing it the way Scott described.
Okay. And thank you for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
And I know, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least recognize Lawrence here, get him to provide input as well, because we've had many hours of discussion about impact fees over the last several years. So just to make sure that everybody hears all sides, it probably is worth.
Yeah, so from a technical policy standpoint, the reason you make them pay it up front is because capacity has become a very, very expensive endeavor. And the idea that if you've allocated a gallon of capacity to a new development, that's a gallon of capacity that now cannot be used for other development. And so the risk associated with allowing him to slow pay it or delay pay it over time is that the next person that comes along, if someone wants to, I don't know the area, but someone wants to develop the property across the street and capacity is limited in the area, and you've allocated it to someone who is now slow paying that capacity over time, you've not made it available for someone else that could otherwise utilize it. And so then you're effectively picking winners and losers on a effectively ad hoc basis. So if you do intend to do this, it needs to absolutely be done by policy with certain standards and kind of exact specifics as to why and how you would go about doing that. But it's much cleaner and much easier to say, our policy is an allocation of capacity is X, you pay it up front, and it gets paid out over that period of time.
And I should also mention too, I'm not aware, other than the Habitat for Humanity and the Rosa Clark line extension really is a different matter, because that line extension goes past multiple properties. It was just going to be the one near the end of the line that was going to be connected. But as far as I know, and looking back at the history, I don't know that we've made any type of exception to that policy, and we've got a 20 some odd year board member here that may remember something that I don't remember. But again, I'm not opposed to doing anything, but what I do want, if we, whatever does happen, is that it needs to be something that is airtight, that, we're not gonna be the losers out of this. If they get their CO for the building and they've never paid the permit fees, because that, it was 58 some odd thousand gallons was what it actually was. And it is attached to the plant right now. So if we don't get a single gallon ever from that project until that is voided out in Columbia, that's 58 some odd
You're
thousand
taking their development
gallons.
That's the issue.
That's correct. And what that has also done is it really has taken and locked up most all, if not all, of the flow that we can serve through the S&S South Pump Station to us.
Okay.
So we need, maybe you can get some direction with that, is if we do, I guess we cannot. So if somebody does come that would flow through that station, we just, unless the engineer feels otherwise through the regular hydraulic study that says we can take it, then, they just may get turned away until some improvements can be made. And I do want to caveat that with, I do have an idea that I did speak to Mr. McLean about on the phone the other day that I'm going to bring up to the OMP committee sometime soon, maybe even this month. But that's my thought. So again, I'm open to whatever. The 10 days was a way for them to get their attention. And, you know, if I didn't have their attention, I intended to follow through with pulling their permit through Columbia.
Yeah, the one other thing I would just add, and one of the reasons that it has definitely tightened up the folks that are coming in to do development. You know, before they probably would have come in and asked for 100,000 gallons if you didn't have the capacity fees in place, because there's no downside risk to them to taking a whole bunch of capacity off of your system. And DES checkbooks that against your system, and you have no recourse for it if they sit on the sidelines and only, you know, if they only build 20,000 gallons of capacity and you've given them 100, then there also needs to be a way to claw it back.
Well, I actually, you know, looking at the flow calculations, which I did get a copy of, I was surprised DHEC or DES allowed them to be permitted at it, because they use North Carolina's standards for flow allocation as opposed to South Carolina's in their formulas. Which, you know, when we looked at our, you know, using our impact fee policy, their flow was going to be around 80,000 gallons as opposed to near 60. So I was kind of surprised that DES didn't.
Which there is a practical ability to go back and claw that back in the event their usage is higher than that once they become operational. But when you're already capacity restricted in the pump station, those are considerations that obviously affect your ability to develop and your city's ability to develop in growth quarters.
So I know this isn't a matter that can be voted on, and I'm not looking for a vote, but just looking for guidance as to how, you know, if you wish me to pursue it or wait, you know, give another 30 days or something until we do have a chance to bring this up for the OMP committee, which you now chair.
I don't think there's a vote to be had at any point in time until they submit their official appeal, right? I mean, there's got to be a denial by you, and then there's got to be a request to appeal to the board. So, I mean, we can't even consider it until we can go through the official process anyway. So my point was just to be able to present it so you're aware of it and that he did call. So I think you guys are finishing with your 10 days. So.
Is that in Seneca city limits? Okay, it's outside. I thought someone just make sure.
No, we stopped there about Wells Highway.
Oh, okay.
Down Wells a little bit at Bank of America area. So radius, that kind of Belk area is where we kind of stopped.
Any other items for discussion from the board? All right, we'll move on to item number M, executive session. We have 2 items to consider. Item number 1, receipt of legal advice related to insurance defense denial. Item number 2, discussion of personnel matter, executive director evaluation and consideration of contract extension. Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll take about a 4-minute recess. Let Total body what?
Okay, we're
Total
back on
body.
it.
Mr. Dial motion and I second.
All right, so there was, of course, no action taken in executive session. We did receive legal advice related to the insurance defense denial, and we discussed personnel matter related to the executive director evaluation and consideration of contract extension. What we decided to do there, Chris, is that you're going to send me a copy of your contract along with the performance evaluation instrument. I will send it to the individual board members, and then at the September board meeting, we will discuss that, the results of that with you at that time. With that, we move on to item number N, upcoming meetings. Operation and Planning Committee will meet August the 20th at 8:30. Finance and Administration Committee will meet August 26th at 9 a.m. The next Board of Commissioners meeting will be September the 8th at 4 p.m. And I did miss, we will have August 14th at 9 a.m. Whatever we're calling that new committee.
Constitution Committee.
Reconstitution Committee. All those meetings will be at the OJRSA Lamar Bell Boardroom. Unless there are any further items to consider, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the gas. Really fish. Should get you a black robe.